All right, so Meg Strickler, let's say you're the defense attorney, you're in that courtroom, you're trying to understand the essence of each of these potential jurors. You've only got 2 more peremptory challenges left. How do you get to the state of mind? And remember, I'm going to put a restriction on you. You only have like a minute or so to talk to them. So what question do you ask to give you on the defense side a sense of who these folks are?
You know what, there is no question. What you simply need to do, like Ann Fitz said earlier, is that you look at the body language, you listen to their voice, you look at their reactions to just your presence. You've only got 1 minute per juror. Don't waste it on words. Spend that time concentrating on the reaction towards you. If somebody's doing this to you, then you know they're kind of not into your defending this client. Or if they're looking at you intently, well then yes, ask them something that will interest them, because you want to get a bond with them so that they can listen to you and respect the words you say as part of selecting the perfect jury for this case.
Now, Richard Gabriel, you're a jury expert, and you were sort of chomping there, wanting to jump in on that answer. Yeah. What's the one question you would ask?
If I had one question, I would ask, who do you think is more responsible for the health of a patient? The doctor or the patient, it's him or herself?
Huh. But can you even ask that question based on this questionnaire? Because your questions can only be based on what's in here.
I wouldn't care. That's the issue. I try to ask it because that's the issue here. That's really what the fundamentally is going to be the issue, is whether people feel that the doctor is responsible essentially for the entire health care of their patient, or whether it's the patient themselves that ultimately is responsible.
I get that when, the defense wants to get rid of this person and the prosecution, but I don't get when they both agree, oh yeah, this person's fine. How does that happen?
What do you mean? How does
in other words, you think that the person would either indicate one way or another, but quite often, both the defense and the prosecution think, that's our guy.
Yeah, but Jane, here's what's happening. It's an exercise in projection.
Yeah.
You're forecasting, and you've got certain traits that you're going, I need that kind of analytical person because they're going to really question the evidence, they're going to be skeptical. The prosecution's going, they're really conservative, they're really law enforcement oriented, and so both sides got to go, I'm going to appeal to that side of that person.
And they got to hope that bears out in that deliberation room once they start deliberating. Very interesting. Well,
take a look at this. Behind my shoulder, it says public drawing line starts here. That's where the public will have to come every morning if they want even a chance of getting in to see this new trial of the century, the Michael Jackson death trial with Dr. Conrad Murray on trial. They're only going to pick 6 members of the public to get into court every day. And again, they have to line up here. It's a lottery system. They put their names in at 7:30.
You know what, Jane? I remember on the first days of the Casey Anthony trial, I would go into that line. There would be over 100 people standing in line, waiting since maybe 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock the night before.
With picnic baskets.
Exactly, to get into that courtroom.
Yeah.
But the difference is everybody on that line felt like they were a part of the process because they felt like there was a chance that they could get into that courtroom. Maybe not today, maybe the next day, but I wonder with this, you start lining up and you start feeling like, hey, this is my judicial process and I can't get into that courtroom.
Well, this could boomerang a little bit because the more people who are in the court, the more people have to be quiet, not wear Michael Jackson regalia and just sort of sit there. Those people are not allowed in court. They're going to be outside. And let me tell you, I spent the last couple of days outside court. We've already heard Jackson impersonators. There's people with gloves. There's people with conspiracy theories. There's people complaining. You're going to have a circus out there.
All right, but Meg Strickler, let me talk to you on this. These folks, whether or not they want to wear Michael Jackson regalia, whether or not they want to come in with a white glove, aren't they allowed to be in that courtroom? Shouldn't there be room for them to be able to sit and watch their judicial process in action?
They do, but there's also the issue of security here. You're going to have the other Jackson family members there. This is high profile. The judge is allowed to keep it to just 6 people. And I wanted to comment, Ryan, about the thought about the jurors, the people hanging out outside the courtroom in Casey Anthony's situation. It's a lot different. Orlando is a smaller town, and as you know, they really cared about Kelly. It was one of their own. Michael Jackson in L.A., it's not the same thing at all. It's kind of like Michael Jackson's this big, kind of a extraterrestrial. I think that's what someone said earlier on in session. I thought that was well put because I think he actually was on your panel, Ryan, that said that, where he's a little bit different, so we have a lot more security issues. And I think that you're going to have some public access. That's what the TV is doing, okay?
I got to say, Meg, Michael Jackson, his home base was here in Los Angeles. There are people who were camped outside his mansion, his rented mansion, on the day of his death, who followed the ambulance to the hospital. So these are not people who regard him as some extraterrestrial out there in the Netherlands. They're saying that this is their neighbor, their friend, and they are just as invested, if not more.
Well, you know L.A. better than I do.
Casey Anthony case.
You know L.A. better than I do. You lived out there, you worked out there, and you are there now, obviously. It's a different world, though. He had a gate, he had a fence, and what all I'm trying to say is that there's a lot more security issues here. That's why Michael Jackson in Neverland had that big gate, which kept everybody out, including his family out. So, of course, the trial here is going to be the same thing. The media is getting the trial out to the public so that the process is public. So having 6 seats is sufficient in this case. We got to worry about security issues here, and I think they are doing a fabulous job.
But if Meg Strickler, you make a great point, and thank you so much. The other issue, though, being if there's a lot of people outside, there's a security issue outside the courthouse. So it's something to think about. Now, let's go to Rochelle Carey for a news break.